how did we map the last remaining unprotected habitats harboring rare species of animals and plant? Plan, which we call imperative species. So what I'll do today is I'll go briefly on the process on how did we identify these sites, and then present their distribution across the globe and some estimation on how much it will cost to save those sites and plan forward. It's not changing. I think we're having some issues here. Okay. So in late December 2022, at the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity in Montreal, 190 parties or countries agreed to adopt a Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and place to protect at least 30% of the world's land, terrestrial land, oceans, inland waters by 2030, which is more commonly known as 30 by 30 target. There's something this is not working. So, it's not moving. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the framework, the Global Biodiversity Framework, mandates the countries, signatory countries, to prepare a national biodiversity strategies and action plans, commonly known as NBSAPs, as a primary tool for maintaining 30 by 30 targets at the national level. So success of any of these land-based conservation projects, conservation and protection projects really depends on the quality of the land they preserve. Rather than the area of the land. So the tradition has been, when countries set up their protected areas, they tend to choose the areas which are unsuitable for agriculture and other development areas. So they are cheap to acquire, and mostly, protected areas are either in the areas permanently covered with snow and ice, or in the barren areas. Therefore, these NBSAPs should prioritize the areas where rare and endangered species live to prevent the species extinction. So we thought that a global map showing these unprotected habitats harboring rare and endangered species would help the countries to set up their biodiversity action plan. So then, in most of the countries, most of the developing countries, they do not have the resources or even the information to figure out where these rare species occur within their national boundaries. So we thought that we'll develop we'll develop a map that shows the distribution of these habitats that countries can use for their presentation. So then we started with looking at the published data. We took the 6 commonly used biodiversity maps that has been published, and then WDPA, the World Database on Protected Areas, to see which of these areas are outside the protected areas. Because if they are inside the protected areas, by definition, they are protected. So we use the Alliance for Geo-Extinction. The Alliance for Delta Extinction has this layer has this layer has 1,620 last remaining sites showing the population of uh, population of most threatened and endangered species. Some of which have left only one population left. So we use this as a first layer. And then the second layer we choose was IUCN's range rarity species layer. The range rarity or range size rarity species layer is 300-meter resolution raster image. And then image that's based on the scores of endemism of all the mammals, amphibians, birds, birds and reptile species. So the range rarity is a measure of how limited the species geographic range is. It's a more relative concept, meaning that a species is considered rare compared to the other species in the same, in a group. Then we looked at the IUCN threatened species list, which is also again 300-meter resolution raster layer. And this map shows the geographic distribution of species that are at the risk of extinction. The map is based on the information about the species range, population, habitat, and traits. Then we look at the KBAs, or key biodiversity area. These are the sites that has a significant contribution to the global presence of biodiversity. This means that the site may contain many unique species, or it may also contain the sites for only one species. Only one species. So the KBA data is controlled by IBAT International IBAT Alliance Group, which is which controls the data, and this data is not publicly available to use it. So if you want to use it, you have to get their permissions. And they also have a restriction, like if you derive any data from this layer, you cannot share that data for openly, or that can be used for profit processes without their written permission. So that's kind of a little little concerning, because we won't be able to share it broadly, the product, our product, without having people outside the academic committee or research groups to buy a license from them for commercial purpose. Then the fifth layer we looked at a small range vertebrate species. So this data layer has a map that shows the vertebrate species that live in the limited areas and are often considered as a conservation priorities. And this map is again is at 1 kilometer raster resolution. So the sixth layer we looked at is a rare plant species. It's provide a rare plant distribution across the globe, and this one has a very low resolution of 100 kilometers pixel size. And lastly, we use the World Database on Protected Areas, or WDPA, as our base map to see which animal, whether the locations are protected or unprotected. So it took a lot of pre-processing for data to make them align, and then we resample all our layers at the 100 by 100 meter or 1 hectare resolution, because that's the data we have for land cover map. Here. So, Here's a schematic of the process or our workflow, how we did it. First, we sequentially overlaid each of those 6 layers. So why we did that? We first took out the first layer, area of zero lines, and then intersected with the IUCN range size reality layer. And then we took out any overlapping area between these 2 layers. Any overlapping area of the IUCN range reality species layer that overlap with area of zero lines, so that we don't double count it, and then it's counted only once. So we did that, and then we combined this area, layer 1 and 2, and then intersected with 3, and again we took out the overlapping areas from layer 3, and so we did it. We processed all the 6 layers to generate a 6 layer to generate a species reality layer. And then we intersect that with the protected area system, WDPA 2023, so that we intersected and removed the areas overlapping with protected areas. So we have a layer of unprotected sites or unprotected habitat. And then, so we have all of the sites. Those harbor rare species and outside the protected areas. Now we want to know how much of those those areas or those polygons have a suitable habitat or habitats. And so we overlaid this on the top of the fraction land cover map at a 1 hectare resolution from Copernicus, European Satellite Agency, and we choose 100 meters or 1 hectare layer because that's a layer that provides a fractional coverage. So every pixel has a value of the land cover from 0 to 100%, so that we can effectively isolate the habitats from non-habitats. And so after then this layer, we remove all the habitat and generate a conservation imperative layers. And this is the layer. This layer has only the habitats within each of the sites. And then on the, one of the other stuff that we did was we did an adjacency analysis to see how many of these unprotected sites are next to the protected areas or are within 2.5 kilometer from the protected area boundary. And so I'll go through why we did this and how we did in its sections below. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not work. Can't get. I am having trouble.
Just try your up or down here. Does that work?
It used to work earlier, but now it doesn't work.
So you're not in presented.
Okay, so why is this doing that?
Right slide or?
Yeah, that's the right slide. I don't. So, okay. So, when we do that first step, when we stack down all the 6 layers and remove the areas that overlap with those layers and protected area, we generate a species severity layer that consists of 7,471 sites covering about 3.04 billion square kilometers, which is 2.3% of the terrestrial land surface. Now it's projected. I don't know.
Yeah, seems like that's not. Is there another? Do you have another show up? Another slideshow?
There's no, nothing is showing up.
This is.
Yes, this is the right slide. So maybe, yeah, it's not. Oh. Yes, so then for the next is to do a to do a fractional habitat analysis to see how much of each polygons each side had the different habitat types. We brought the species severity layer that we created in step 1 into the Google Earth engine. This is the Google's cloud-based platform where most of the geospatial data are available free, and you can process your data in the server so that you don't have to buy any additional hardware or software. So you can process it here, and so we brought in within the. So we have we pull out the Copernicus fractional land cover map, which I said earlier is it has it's a 100 meter by 100 meter resolution, and it has the cover layers with different habitats. So what we did, so then what we did was we identified the different, so we classified these maps grouped together into the forest, grassland, shrubland, uh, uh, and bare soil, and then for the xeric shrub biomes, we used the bare soil, which is more than 70%, which in each pixel as a habitat to account for some of those desert and xeric species. Okay, and then we overlaid on the top of, we overlaid those species rarity polygons on top of those to run the analysis. Then, just to make it visually appealing, appealing, we just presented habitat and non-habitat. Sorry, we presented one habitat layer. The green ones are the forest habitat, and yellowish brown are non-forest habitat, and this brown are non-habitat, and then these red polygons are the species rarity sites. And let's to zoom in a little more so that I can present more. Zoom in that. So within each of the species rarity habitat, we had a species rarity polygon. We had the habitats like this one is the non-forest habitat, and the green ones are the forested habitat. So we identified those habitat, and then from each of these sites, we removed all the non-habitats so that to account for how much habitat is layered within these sites. And we call these sites conservation imperative sites, and should be targeted for protecting. Okay, and so then here's the distribution of those conservation imperative sites. As you see, they are highly flumped and skewed mostly toward the tropical pit, toward the tropic region. Okay. So this distribution of the conservative imperative sites are highly skewed and highly skewed. And tropical most forest has most of it. It's located in one biome, tropical and subtropical, broadleaf forest, about 75% of it. And so we try to say, okay, so this is by when you look at the biome level, and then we want to see how they represent at the realm biogeorealm. So when we sorted these same sites by the biogeographic realms, we found that there were most of those sites are located in the neotropic biome, 25%, and then followed by Indo-Malayan 27%, Australasia 15%, and Afrotropic 11%. Then we also wanted to know how big these sizes are. Habitat sizes in the habitat size of the rear species, and we found that most of the 9% of the sites were greater than 10 kilometers or 1,000 hectares. So that gives us a good idea on there's enough habitat in each of these sites to protect for the future. So to develop the management plans and to protect this site, some of the donors and people are interested by the region. So we identified top 10 ecoregions in each of the in this biogeorealm. And the four realms in the tropics, at the Neotropic, in the Malayan, Afrotropic, and Australasia, 10 top ecoregions in each of these. When combined, top 10 ecoregions in each of these the four tropical realms, it covers 63.5% of all the global sites. Okay. So increasingly, there's a call for achieving 30% target by 2030 and 50% by 2050. And to do this, we need to protect more areas. And so the conservation imperative sites that are the ones that we should, we should target. Once we should target, and then if you look the side, when we first look at all the species rarity layer, it came to do a 7,000 plus sites covering 2.3% of the global terrestrial landscape. But when we did a fractional analysis, remove the non-habitat areas within each of those sites, then it went down to 1.2% of the global in the global landmass, or 164 million hectares. And but if you just focus on the tropics, there's most of the conservation imperative sites are located within this 0.75% landmass of the when you compare with the global landmass. So now, how many of you can see the green polygons here? Not many, right? These are the polygons. These are the polygons which fall into the protected areas expanded between 2018 and 2018 and 2023. So there were protected areas added between 2018 and 2023, which 2023. And now it's okay. So between 2018 and 2023, altogether 120 million hectares of protected areas were added. Now we have like 100 of our 16,825 conservation imperative sites covered 164 million hectares, right? So out of the 120 million hectares added in protected area, only 11 million hectare falls into the covers the rare species, are the ones we identified. So that means like it's a very small portion that's in protected area, and will tell us that despite all the hype and all the all the hype that we need to protect 30% the protected areas, and that's way by protecting them we can save the rare and endangered species. It's not working well. So then we wanted to know how many of these conservation imperative sites, rarity sites, are close to the protected area. protected area. The assumption here is that the site protection and management could be easier and cheaper than expansion of existing protected areas or establishment of corridors. So we choose 2.5 kilometer as an upper limit based on the minimum corridor requirement for large terrestrial mammals like elephant to move between the isolated paths of habitat. So we put a 2.5 kilometer buffer around the protected areas and see how many of the conservation imperative sites fall within that area. And then we found that 38% of the 16,825 sites fall either on the adjacent to the current protected area or are within 2.5 square kilometer. Okay. So again, we are looking at the country level, and NBSAPs are implemented at the national level. So we try to we look at which countries have the most conservation imperative sites. The top countries in the world with the highest number of conservation imperative sites are Philippines, Brazil, Indonesia, Madagascar, Colombia, Ecuador, Papua New Guinea, India, Peru, and Turkey. And Turkey together, they cover 73% of all the sites globally, and globally, and it covers some 492,000 square kilometers. But here you see there's Turkey seems to be out here. And that's mainly because the Turkey doesn't publish their protected area. So they don't, the WPA World Database on protected areas have the information, but they cannot publish. And so they cannot give to the public. And that's one problem we face. And increasingly more countries, recently in 2019, India started restricting publishing their protected areas, and did some areas in China and Russia are also not available. How are we doing? So I'm doing with time. I think with the technical issues, we're. So now we will going to look at, some estimation on how much it will cost, because everyone wants to know, is interested in how much it will cost to protect these conservation imperative sites. So what we did is, our team, our team collected data from empirical studies between 2008 and 2022. So these data were from 1,016 projects that was compiled by IUCN Netherlands, Quick Response Fund for Nature, World Land Trust, and supplemented by unpublished data from NGOs focused on land purchase. Land purchases. And this data set includes a range of prices, including expansion of existing parks, community reserves, establishment of private protected areas, and creation of community forest reserves across 300 across 833 sites globally, representing 1 million hectares. So the, okay, 1 million hectares. So here's a snapshot of a model, results from the model. The model of the land acquisition cost per hectare that included by geographic realm, purchase type, purchase size, per capita GDP, and population size performed best and had an R-square value of 0.76. And then what this shows is, land acquisition price. So it's two outliers. The Australia seems to be very cheap, and in Indo-Malayan seems to be very expensive. That can be understandable because if you look at Australia, there's a vast lot of unproductive land. And then if you look at Indo-Malaya, like Indonesia, Malaysia, where there's a rainforest, palm oil plantations, the land price there is very expensive. And other than that, it's pretty much indifference in other realms. So then how much will it cost, right? So combining the results of the simulation models across the realm and the biogeographic regions, we estimated that total cost of protecting all 16,825 sites is $263 billion. And then if you just focus on the trophic areas, which covers most of the species, which covers most of the species, is $169 billion, which comes about 34 billion per year over the next 5 years for preventing this most important sites for species facing imminent extinction. So now this amount looks very big, but if you compare with the global GDP, it's just 0.03% of the global GDP, and it's less than 2% of environmentally harmful subsidies provided by the government annually. So I think this is, we think this is a possible. And just to keep in a perspective, the consumer report in 2022 published that Americans spend $136.8 billion per year just on taking care of their pets. So to protect the rare species in the globe and to prevent the extinction, I think this amount is achievable. Okay, we've got a few more minutes. If I could move this slide down. So then how do you go about securing these elevation sites? And just to remind you back that the global biodiversity framework are operated in national levels. So I think the country level. So we think that the country level assessment needs to be done, led by the local team and local professionals and local NGOs, because what we have done is the global level analysis, where we're looking the areas from top down and identifying areas which might differ in the countries, and on the ground it might be it might depends on most of this area are protecting our these areas would really depend on the local policies, politics, socio-economic conditions, and idea. So we need to prioritize top level, these sites. We need to do partner with the local NGOs and country level people, and then select the areas that's more important for them. And the prices, and decide whether the land is, whether they can buy the land or lease the land, or that's not an option. It's in many countries it might be just converting those into community lands, community forest, or those might be in other. In countries, right? We're so among the top 10 countries, we as our team, we have been looking at working, beginning our work in the countries that that has the more conservation imperative sites. So the key point is to be able to tackle these issues. We need to focus on the areas that have more conservation and imperative sites. And if you look through again, these top 10 countries would be the way to go. And currently, we have been collaborating with the people on the ground in Brazil, Indonesia, and Ecuador, and helping the biologists to come up with a national plan. With that, I don't think we have enough time, so I will just going to.
Sure.
Pardon me?
Sure.
Do we? Okay. Okay. Oh, this is being so. So one of our coworkers, Professor Carlos, he's working in Brazil with a team of Brazilian team, using the conservation imperatives as conservation imperative sites as a basis to do their research. And Brazil has 3,300 conservation imperative sites concentrated mostly along the Atlantic coast. So these are mostly, is working on these sites. And what they found was when they started working on these areas, they found that some of the maps we produce, what we see missed some of the protected areas that they are having. And so what we really we rely on the world database on protected areas to find out our protected and unprotected land. But there are so many community efforts that's going on around the globe that has not been counted in our studies. So here is we need to really partner with local communities to move forward. And then I'm going to first slide. And in Indonesia, so I'm working with Eric Dunderstein, another co-author of the paper that we jointly published. And we're looking at in Indonesia and working with the local teams to identify, to develop a framework to protect these strategies. So the Indonesia has the largest conservation imperative sites, right? And then what we're doing is you are working with those teams to identify areas, and we're focusing on soil scale. And when we went on the ground and started doing our stuff, what we saw was like some of the forests, some of the lands we said habitat here. Now when we went down the ground, we found it is actually oil palm plantations. So this could be, there's always a lag between what you get published and what's on our. So our best map was the latest best map we had on the forest land cover types was from 2019. So there could be the areas that has been converted after those maps were produced. So again, this emphasizes that we need to really work locally, work with the local community, people on the ground to develop the framework and then go from there. And so we did publish this, this information with many our co-authors who are working on the different part of the world. So some of them, Carlos is working in Brazil, working in Brazil, and then people. So I want to thank all of my co-authors here. We work together on the global analysis of remaining habitats, and also I want to thank here Eric Dresden, who is my mentor, and then who brought me into the conservation field. So he hired me as a wildlife technician in Smithsonian Institution, Nepal Tara Ecology Project, right out of my undergrads. And so we have been collaborating from there, and the funding for this resource was provided by the One Earth Foundation. Yeah. Thank you for your attention, and sorry the technology didn't work as we planned to, and sorry for all those interruptions with the technology. If there's any questions. Let's see if there's any.
And on the maps within the US and North America, there was some bigger unprotected areas in northern Canada, but within the United States, there was little. Does that mean we eliminated those rare spots, or are we doing a good job protecting land?
Well, I say could go two ways, right? And then, so the distribution of rare species are more common in the tropics than in the world forest. So we have a few of those, and most of the rare species are on our southeastern border and some in Alaska side, and that's one of the regions that we are not seeing those areas. Okay. Yeah, probably.
I saw pictures of bees at the end and butterflies. Or, yeah,
So this not much environment data. Some of those are already, which are included in some of the IUCN layers are there. But we recently have found the data on most on ant distribution data, and there's a very little data available at the global scale. So they are limited to the areas, and that's still a big unknown. Yeah, please.
I'm just kind of curious with like the global economy and development, like land development being dynamic, changing time. How long do you think that these outputs are going to be representative, and then how often do you think like this project needs to be updated to match that?
So the debate, our goal is to have this data available, right? And then we did all our analysis in the Google Earth engine. And so we're trying to make it dynamically available. And some of the stuff where nowadays we're getting most annually. So there's going to be an annual land analysis, land cover and land use analysis data. And the protected area system, WDVA updates every month. But there is, again, some lagging there between the protected areas are proposed and established in the country and they are reported. And so, this is very dynamic situation, and then the review of this data needs to be done more often. And I think, so this data, you can get all our data in the Global Safety Net website, and where the data is updated as soon as we get those. And the goal is to be able to update every year, and we're looking at funds to funds to do that work. So,
Thank you.
next.